In computer graphics, a height map or height field is a raster image used mainly as discrete global grid in secondary elevation modeling. Each pixel stores values, such as surface elevation data, for display in 3D computer graphics. A height map can be used in bump mapping to calculate where this 3D data would create a shadow in a material. In displacement mapping, to displace the actual geometric position of points over the textured surface, or for terrain where the height map is converted into a 3D mesh. A height map contains one channel interpreted as the distance of displacement or height from the floor of a surface, and sometimes visualized as luma of a grayscale image, with black representing minimum height and white representing maximum height. When the map is rendered, the designer can specify the amount of displacement for each unit of the height channel, which corresponds to the contrast of the image. Height maps can be stored by themselves in existing grayscale image formats with or without specialized metadata, or in specialized file formats such as Dalen Leveler, Genesis IV, and TerraGen documents. One may also exploit the use of individual color channels to increase detail. For example, a standard RGB 8-bit image can only show 256 values of gray and hence only 256 heights. By using colors, a greater number of heights can be stored. For a 24-bit image, 2563 equals 16,777,216 heights can be represented. 2564 equals 4,294,967,296 if the alpha channel is also used. This technique is especially useful where height varies slightly over a large area. Using only gray values because the heights must be mapped to only 256 values, the rendered terrain appears flat, with steps in certain places. Height map of Earth's surface, including water and ice, in equirectangular projection, normalized as 8-bit grayscale height maps are commonly used in geographic information systems, where they are called digital elevation models. Height maps can be created by hand with a classical paint program or a special terrain editor. These editors visualize the terrain in 3D and allow the user to modify the surface. Normally, there are tools to raise, lower, smooth, or erode a terrain. Another way to create a terrain is to use a terrain generation algorithm. This can be, for example, a 2D simplex noise function, or by a diffusion limited aggregation. Another method is to reconstruct height maps from real-world data, for example using synthetic aperture radar. Height maps are widely used in terrain rendering software in modern video games. Height maps are an ideal way to store digital terrain elevations compared to a regular polygonal mesh. They require substantially less memory for a given level of detail. Most modern 3D computer modeling programs are capable of using data from height maps in the form of a bump, normal, or displacement maps to quickly and precisely create complex terrain and other surfaces. In the earliest games using software rendering, the elements often represented heights of columns of voxels rendered with raycasting. In most newer games, the elements represent the height coordinate of polygons in a mesh. Although the terms height map and height field are often indistinguishable from each other, there is still a small difference in the terms. Height map comes from the mathematical term map, and height field comes from the mathematical term vector field. The height map is the more correct description because most height fields are not a vector field in mathematical terms, but they are always a map in mathematical terms as well as in the visual representation. The shader nodes links to an external site in Blender is used to help you manipulate how light behaves with your objects. Light can travel through objects, slightly penetrate objects, bounce off of objects, and bend inside of objects. Shader nodes are a subcategory of material nodes. The Grand Canyon is a steep-sided canyon carved by the Colorado River in Arizona, the United States. The Grand Canyon is 277 miles 446 kilometers long, up to 18 miles 29 kilometers wide, and attains a depth of over a mile 6,093 feet or 1,857 meters. The canyon and adjacent rim are contained within Grand Canyon National Park, the Kaibab National Forest, Grand Canyon Parashant National Monument, the Hualapai Indian Reservation, the Havasupai Indian Reservation, and the Navajo Nation. President Theodore Roosevelt was a major proponent of the preservation of the Grand Canyon area and visited it on numerous occasions to hunt and enjoy the scenery. Nearly 2 billion years of Earth's geological history have been exposed as the Colorado River and its tributaries cut their channels through layer after layer of rock while the Colorado Plateau was uplifted. While some aspects about the history of incision of the canyon are debated by geologists, several recent studies support the hypothesis that the Colorado River established its course through the area about 5 to 6 million years ago. Since that time, the Colorado River has driven the downcutting of the tributaries and retreat of the cliffs, simultaneously deepening and widening the canyon. For thousands of years, the area has been continuously inhabited by Native Americans, who built settlements within the canyon and its many caves. The Pueblo people considered the Grand Canyon a holy site and made pilgrimages to it. The first European known to have viewed the Grand Canyon was Garcia López de Cárdenas from Spain, who arrived in 1540.